If you can create value, you can make a lot of money. And to me, value is serving others, it's solving problems, and the bigger the problems you solve, the bigger payoff you're gonna have. What I want to talk about is an entire mindset called win, then play. So win first, then play. High achievers and people that show up something like this, a lot of times there's this paradigm people get stuck in called play to win. Play to win is all about hustle, it's all about hard work, it's all about doing what everyone else won't do so that one day you can live a better life, but what you miss out on is the memories you would create along the way. And the questions I want you to really consider is, what does a win look like for you? Society defines wins in really terrible ways. Like society is gonna put someone like Elon Musk up and say, look how amazing, look at all the things that Elon's accomplished. Guess what? Elon has a terrible life. He doesn't sleep but maybe 2 or 3 hours, usually on the floor of Tesla. He's divorced because he was so erratic about how he built his business. I mean, he's got all these things that don't really constitute true wealth, but he has a boatload of money. And if we make money our only objective or the only goal, what you're gonna find is you can make a lot of money and still end up miserable. But I will tell you this, not having money is pretty miserable too. So I'm not telling you not to focus on it. I'm just saying that if it's your only consideration for what is an amazing life, that a lot of times it's an enhancer, but alone it becomes a very distracting thing because it can really shield us from living our purpose or having quality of life or doing the things that we love along the way. And really what I'm an advocate for is for people to build a life that they love. Like, I want you to truly understand, like, what is a win for you? Is the juice worth the squeeze in what you're doing in this world? And at what cost is it gonna take to have this life that you love? And are you willing to sacrifice that? Because look, there's a lot of people that think sacrifice is a really great, noble thing. In a religious context, sacrifice means to make sacred. That's a great thing. But if we take it out of a religious context and we just place it in the business world, it usually means sacrifice family, sacrifice health. It usually means sacrifice something today because you're hustling so hard, because one day, someday, you're gonna get to that promised land of having so much money that you can finally enjoy life. But what happens is we start to program our minds and our behaviors to actually tend towards this scarcity behavior. And look, scarcity defined, I would call it like the consumer condition. The consumer condition is a place where people look to take more from the world than they give to it. The consumer condition is a place where people live by fear, doubt, worry, complaint, frustration, anger. It's a place where you see, if you want to see it, just turn on the news. It's really apparent on the news. It's all that's usually talked about. And it's actually an addictive part of the brain where that's what people start to look for. And when you're in that paradigm or that perspective of scarcity or the consumer condition, there is no room for happiness. There is no situation of love and joy. It's simply a world of sacrifice. And some people that live in that world, they get put on the covers of magazines, or that we get to see them and admire them in some ways. But when we dig into their life and we ask, are they truly wealthy? I would say, I don't know. Like, let me define that for a minute. Like, being rich is having a lot of money. And that's something in today's world that I think is easier to have happen than ever before. Because before it was kind of like, were you born of the right family? And did you inherit that money? Or did you marry well? Or were you lucky? And now, because of the internet and because of technology and because of everything like that, it doesn't require to go raise a bunch of money to start a business. It doesn't require that you already know a bunch of people to become profitable. It just simply means, can you create value in this world? If you can create value, you can make a lot of money. And to me, value is serving others, it's solving problems, and the bigger the problems you solve, the bigger payoff you're gonna have. But at the core of all this, I think, is what I would call soul purpose, S-O-U-L. Soul purpose comes from a producer paradigm. It comes from abundance. Abundance is a place where we focus on innovation and ingenuity and exchange and service and solving problems. In the core of abundance is where value creation exists. And in the world of cause and effect, value creation is it's the cause and dollars are the effect. Let me say that really easily. Dollars follow value. So if we look at some people that have a lot of money because they're part of a corporation and this corporation isn't necessarily out to do the best things in the world, they're simply out to make as much profit as possible, they'll usually use terms like shareholder value. And shareholder value may or may not be built on value creation. But what I'm going to urge you to do is really live a life based upon value and your values first and foremost, because as we unveil this, I mentioned soul purpose. Soul purpose is S-O-U-L. Sole purpose, it's your values. So what do you truly value in this world? What matters to you? Second, it's your abilities. Where do you have capabilities? Where do you have unique abilities? Where do you have things that you're just really good at? And by the way, what I find is most people discount what they're best at. Because when they're really good at something, they expect other people are probably good at it. But what I'm here to tell you is what you're really good at, someone else probably isn't as good at it. And that's where you can earn the most and be the most effective and be the biggest value creator. So in sole purpose, we've got values, we've got ability, and then we've got passion. And passion is just a fuel. Like, we could go to any street corner in the world and hear someone ranting about passion. I can throw a rock and hit someone talking about passion right now, but people go passionately broke or run passionately in the wrong direction if they don't get clear about their purpose. Right? There's a lot of people that are really passionate about what I would call a hobby, but a hobby doesn't equate to money sometimes, or it doesn't equate to a business, or it doesn't equate to creating value for other people, but it could be something you just enjoy. And that's fine, there's plenty of room for that, but let's just not confuse and collapse that as being of significant value to the world or being expected to make money doing those types of things. Like, I do stand-up comedy. Nobody's paying me to do stand-up comedy, right? Like, it's funny because I once told my wife that I want to do stand-up comedy, and her response was, "But you're not really that funny." And I was like, "I speak all the time when people laugh." She's like, "You're really good at making money, so they're going to be really nice to you," right? So it's a fun hobby, and I've opened for Jamie Kennedy and the guy that was runner-up on Last Comic Standing. His name's Marcus. So I've done that, but it's a hobby. I'm not trying to make that my profession. I just do that as a way to relax and rejuvenate and to increase quality of life. And then I bring a little bit of that into my talks every now and again, right? But that's a hobby. It's not a business. There's a distinction between the two. And so in sole purpose, we begin with your values. We then look at your abilities. Then we focus on your passions to fuel those, but the most important part of sole purpose is vision. And vision is the rarest commodity in the world. Vision is the rarest commodity in the world. What I mean by that is there's so many people in the world that are busy. They're just doing, and they're trading their time and their energy for money, just hustling. But ultimately, it's those people like, the first time I recognized this had to be like 20 years ago. I was at a speech in Vegas, and you might know who this person is that was giving the speech, and he's got a lot of opinion around him, but it was Trump. So Trump's giving a speech, and he's talking about how he's gonna build this building in Las Vegas, right? It was gonna be the most magnificent, huge building ever built in the city of Las Vegas. And what I realized as he was saying these things is that he was never gonna lift a hammer. He was never going to design anything on a piece of paper as far as architecture. But his name was going to go up on the building. He was going to be the most recognizable person with that, and probably the most profitable person without doing any of the physical labor, but he did the work of selling a vision. And this is what the world is missing. The world is missing vision. It's missing, like, what is it that you're up to? Why are you up to it? And is it worthy of your life? Is it enough of a challenge that it inspires you? Like, vision is very different than goals. See, like, goals are just, you write down a goal that you pretty much know you can achieve. That's a goal, or an objective. You have the existing resources, whether it's the relationships or whether it's the money. Like, those are goals. I write down goals, and I want to accomplish, 5 personal goals a quarter and maybe 5 professional goals a quarter, and I feel pretty comfortable that writing those down, I have a high likelihood of hitting them. A vision is different than that, because a vision is beyond my reach. A vision is something I don't personally know how to achieve when I articulate it. And it's maybe even something that I don't know how to achieve in this lifetime, but let me talk about the power of a vision. In 1961, back in the day where there was these things like, they were Zenith TVs. Zenith were like a piece of furniture, and you had to click them to change the channel. And back in 1961, there were 3 channels. And on this day in 1961, all 3 channels had JFK on it. And JFK said to the nation, we're going to land a man on the moon and return them safely home within this decade. We're going to land a man on the moon and return them safely home within this decade. By the way, NASA didn't know how to do that when he spoke it. So I think that it probably changed that Monday morning when they showed up to work. Nobody's like having coffee around the cooler. They're all like crapping themselves, wondering how they're going to accomplish this, right? That's a vision. Vision should be almost equal parts inspiration and elicit some degree of fear. If there's no fear in it, it's just a goal. And what I mean by fear, I'm not talking about like paralyzing, crippling, not sleeping at night fear. Just like, if I say this, am I a little bit crazy? If I say this, I don't really know how to accomplish this, but that's the cool thing about a vision, is a vision lets other people support it and build it with you. The magic of vision is you don't have to do it yourself, you just have to articulate it. And the miracle behind it is if it's beyond your reach, but it inspires other people to show up and want to do it as well. Like, I don't know if anyone watched that movie that Ashton Kutcher portrayed Steve Jobs in, but like it was kind of a flop in Hollywood ultimately. But I remember this one part of the movie, because Steve Jobs gets fired from Apple, and then he comes back, and there's these people just sitting around, and they see him walking around, and they go to talk to him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" They're like, "We're waiting for you to come back," because they were so inspired by his original vision. Like, Steve Jobs cannot program anything when he was alive, right? He didn't build anything. He just spoke it. And it was things that no one knew how to do. Like, whether it was an iPod or whether it was an iMac or whether it was whatever it is, he just articulated it before it existed in physical manifestation. That's vision. But then he encouraged other people to show up that had those skill sets or that could establish those skill sets to build it. And so you're at GHA, so I just want to talk about vision from a standpoint of this is what makes soul purpose compelling. Soul purpose is the best of who you are. It's you at your very best. It's not necessarily what you choose to do in a profession. What you do in a profession is either aligned with your soul purpose or not aligned with your soul purpose. So you can have an amazing attention to detail, which might make you an amazing engineer, or it might make you an amazing surgeon. Or it just may make you an amazing accountant, right? But it's a similar skill set. Your soul purpose is not what you do, it's who you are. And what you do, when it's aligned with the best expression of who you are, you show up more powerfully. I'm not yelling, by the way. I'm just excited, okay? It's like, I get passionate about this kind of stuff, and I'm not willing to let any of you guys go to sleep in the afternoon. So, all right, so soul purpose, the way that we really get there and achieve this is through abundance. Like, vision is an abundant thought process. Abundance is where we think about, instead of in scarcity where it's fear, doubt, and worry, abundance is about it's about faith, it's about creation, it's about innovation. And if you can really embrace that, that's where the magic happens. That's where you can make the biggest difference. Being busy to do something in physical labor, like I came from Price, my dad was a coal miner, both my grandfathers were coal miners, and my great-grandfather was a coal miner. Guess what? They worked hard, but they never established a substantial amount of value in the world outside of their family because they simply traded their time for the dollars of physical and manual labor. And if you're at GHA, I don't think that's what your vision is. It's not a compelling vision because we now have robots and computers and things like that that can handle that. But what my belief is no matter what happens with artificial intelligence and technology, there's three things that if you master, you're going to own the future. The first thing is being adaptable. When you're adaptable, then you're not so tied in. Like the suffering that I see happening in the world today, especially the suffering in America, are people that want the past to be different. So think about it, coming from Carbon County, Utah, people that are coal miners want coal to still be the way of energy when it's not, and they want the past to be different, which is never going to be the way that it happens, and because they're not adaptable, they're stuck in a probable, certain, miserable, scarcity-ridden future because they're looking back. The people that are going to own the future are the ones that create it. So creation is the second characteristic. And creation is the ultimate form of truth. It's the ultimate form of opportunity and reality. Like, I went 2 years ago and filmed a little origin story. And I brought my kids with me. I have an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. So at the time, the 9-year-old is listening to my wife be interviewed for this story. And she goes, when Garrett graduated, there wasn't a job that he wanted to do. So he just invented what he wanted to do. And my son goes, what do you mean invented what he wanted to do? She goes, he just created it. That's what entrepreneurs do. And then my 9-year-old son at the time was like, that sounds amazing. That's what I want to do, right? Like I didn't go, what industry can I go into? Because look, when I graduated from SUU, It was 1999, and the economy was phenomenal, and everything that my family wanted me to do would have absolutely been a terrible choice. So if you're familiar with these companies, the first company that offered me a job was Anderson. Anyone remember Anderson? Yeah, they went down with Enron in 2005 because of faulty, lying-based accounting. And so that was a job I got offered. It was the highest salary that anyone had been offered in accounting from SUU at that time, but I had to live in LA and I would have had to work 18 hours a day, and it didn't sound really exciting to me. Plus, I didn't even know half the acronyms that they were bringing up in the interview. I just was good at interviewing. I wasn't going to be good at the job. Then there was another firm, an American investment bank out of Denver. They got decimated in the year 2000 to 2002, and they're out of business. Merrill Lynch, we've heard tons of bad news about Merrill Lynch over the years. Like every road that they thought was safe and secure was me doing something for someone else, living into their vision, trading my time for that money. And fortunately, there was a dean here at Southern Utah that said, why are you taking advice from people who are already making more money then? He's like, I was already in financial services at the time, making more than any of my professors, and I still had a lot to learn from them, but career advice wasn't one of those things. So there's always things that we can learn from people, but not everything is the right thing to learn from them. Sometimes the best thing we learn from people is an example of what not to do. Some it's an example of what to do, but we have to really understand, don't rely on other people for your sole purpose. Your sole purpose, no one else is going to be able to create what you create within your sole purpose. And so when you say what you want to accomplish, a lot of well-intentioned family, friends, preachers, teachers are going to tell you how risky that is because it would be risky for them because that's not who they are, but it's who you are. And you're inevitably going to make it work, not without mistakes, not without failure, but if you're committed to that vision. See, as long as your vision is bigger than your problems, you'll make it through. Those people that don't make it is when their vision was lower than their problem, and it gobbles them up. Because in that case, you don't have the passion, you're not inspired, you're exhausted. And look, one of the worst books I ever read in college was this business book that it opened up, and the first thing it said in the book was that business, the purpose of business is profit. That was the opening line of the textbook. That is a terrible lie. The responsibility of a business is to be profitable. It's a responsibility. But if your purpose is profit and profit alone, you will get worn down, you'll get wore out, and you might as well go work for Wall Street and be one of these wolves that just steal money from people. Because if that's the purpose, then it's devoid of value creation, it doesn't recognize your sole purpose, and it won't be about vision, it will be about trading your life for money. I don't know why I'm so intense about this, but I'm making sure to make these points, okay? So, I want you to get really clear about your sole purpose, and we'll walk through that here in a second. I want you to be really clear of the producer paradigm. A producer paradigm is led by innovation and ingenuity and creation, and we're talking about the three characteristics that are going to let you own the future. The first one being what? The second one? Creation. Right? Okay, so should I tell you the third one or just see who can get it? All right, I'm not going to tell you. No, I'll tell you. So adaptable, we're really clear. It just means that you can't get stuck in your ways because the world's moving too fast, right? Creation is allowing you to build something from your mind where vision is going to be compelling. And the third piece is connection. Connection. That's relationships. It's not the number of subscribers or followers, or it's not necessarily everything happening in social media. It's the one-on-one interaction where you're present and you're connected because that's where value exists. See, the only real assets in the world are people. And so even if you feel like real estate's an asset, real estate's only an asset if it's utilized by people. The real estate doesn't write a check, the people that use it write a check. So there's no such thing as corporations, there's people that work inside of a corporation. The question is the vision of that corporation and the values of that corporation aligned with who you are as a human being? And is it part of the vision that you want to have, or is that someone else's vision? I feel like in the world of scarcity, a lot of us are being sold, just like I was when I was graduating college, that I should go build someone else's dream rather than have my own. Because that was the way to be safe and secure. But we've watched pensions get decimated. We watch people go work for someone and give all this stuff and get major promises and never see that come to fruition. And that's why I go right back to the very beginning. Vision is the rarest commodity. What is your vision? Like for me, I'll just share what I mean by vision. I use JFK as an example. Land a man on the moon, return him safely home within the decade. By the way, JFK was assassinated and they still made it to the moon by the end of the decade. He created a vision so compelling that it lived beyond his physical form. That's a vision. Most US-based companies or world companies that say they have a mission or a vision statement don't have a mission or vision statement. They have a bunch of gobbledygook that goes on a wall that means nothing. It lives on a wall and never in someone's heart. Like I went into my credit union the other day. I don't go there very often, but my accountant was in Europe, so I had the joy of going in there. And inside there it said their mission was to fulfill my dreams. So I needed a document, notarized that was in Italian, because I have a dual citizenship where I'm an Italian citizen, and I was going to be traveling over there, and they said they couldn't do it. And I was like, why not? They're like, because it's in Italian. I'm like, are we not familiar with Google Translate yet? Or I didn't understand what the problem was, because it was me. I was going to sign it right there in front of them. And I just told them they sucked at fulfilling dreams by the time I left. So, but see, that's an incongruent statement. They're saying it because they think that's what people want to hear versus who they are. So you can go and look at most mission statements and it says, to provide great customer service. That's a stupid idea. That's just part of the basics of business. You should provide great customer service, and you don't have to tell people about it. You just do that, right? And that doesn't put you into an elite category. It just levels the playing field if you want to be extraordinary. Like a vision should be something that lives in the hearts of your people, not on a wall. For my firm, it's called Wealth Factory. We want to get 1 million people liberated so they're economically independent. Most people are in financial bondage. We want to release 1 million people by giving them the strategies, methodologies, insights, and team to get them there. And why? Because you only get one chance to build a life you love and create a legacy that lasts. And we know that if we help them, they can change their family's financial future and their overall destiny so they could build that life that they love. That matters to us. That's how we attract good employees. That's how we have clients that want to become major advocates for us, because it's a vision that when I said 1 million, I don't know how to get there. Like we're maybe at 120,000 people we're impacting directly right now, but we're continuing to have other people step up, be part of it, because we're speaking something into existence. That's vision. And it's congruent with my sole purpose because I love it. I enjoy it. I'm obsessed with it, right? So what is it for you? What is it that's going to call to your sole purpose to bring out the best of who you are, to help you increase your abilities and raise those capabilities, to help you get even more passionate about what you do? Like just start looking at your life. What do you find yourself wanting to debate or get engaged in or talk about or read about, or like that you get all sorts of worked up about? What are those things? Do you see things in the world where you feel like there's too much pain or travesty, or you see some major new development that can make a massive difference? Where do you feel completely called? That's where you invest your time and money right now. Like invest in that. Forget about IRAs. They are going to be a huge, colossal disappointment for you. 401ks, they are not getting people where they're supposed to go. 95% of people that are age 65 are not financially independent, but they're saving money into these plans. Those are never going to be game changers for you. And I know not a lot of financial people will come and tell you that that stuff is crap, but I'm here to tell you that your best investment is you. And the more you invest into your mind, into your experiences, into the discovery of your sole purpose, the better the leader you're going to be, the more power you're going to have, and the game-changing impact you'll be able to make. But if you go put your money in a mutual fund, I don't know, everybody know what a mutual fund is? A mutual fund which is going to have 500 stocks, you might hate 100 of those companies. Like out of the Fortune 500, there's 100 companies that I would despise having to do business with. I don't want to help them. I want to improve the world that I can impact. I want to invest back into myself and into those skill sets. I want to expose even more ability to the world that serves, solves problems, and delivers value. So here's the entire kind of equation that I look at. Everybody good so far? What was the third thing for telling the future? You guys are like on it. I love it. So I'm going to give you what I call the value equation, since really the core of this is value. And a few statements I'll make is if you ever think you have a money problem in the future, it's never a money problem. That's just a symptom of a deeper issue. And that if you want to create more value, you can use this equation. And the thing to understand about this is you're only one idea. So hopefully during the next 9 days, is it 9 days after this? Hopefully over the next 9 days you get new ideas that transform your thinking. or you're one relationship away from the next level of prosperity. So hopefully you build deep bonds and great relationships to help you to have more prosperity. This is the value equation. It's this. It's mental capital. So mental capital is your ideas, it's your knowledge, it's your wisdom, it's your insights, it's tools, it's strategies. Like, it's mental capital. The more mental capital you have, the more value you're going to be able to provide. And that doesn't mean that you become an expert in everything. It means you become so good at your sole purpose and what you do best. So to give you kind of an idea around this, there's a program I went to called Strategic Coach, and the guy that created it, his name's Dan Sullivan. And he said there's 4 levels of ability. And he said the first level is incompetence. Right? The base level is incompetence, and people try to do things they're incompetent at, sometimes in the name of saving money. I'm doing it because if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. People that say that don't understand how to hire or don't spend time with the right people, by the way. Like, if you want something done right, find someone that's brilliant at doing that and delegate it to them. But you can't be cheap. You got to pay for it. The second level is competence. So competence, a lot of times we do things that we're competent at, once again, just because it's easier in the moment. But here's a notion to consider. We can do things in one of 2 formats, hard easy or easy hard. Easy hard is, right now, it might be easier for me to just do something versus delegate it. It might be easier for me just to take care of something. Like, this is especially apparent in my mind with kids. Like, it's a lot easier for me just to pick up, clean up, or do a project, because a 5-minute project, if I bring the 11-year-old along, is now a 50-minute project because his ADD and, whatever it might be. But if I do not teach him, it's the easy thing to do it myself right now. Life gets harder for him and for me in the future when he's a train wreck and he's ill-prepared for life, right? Hard easy is, hey, sometimes it's hard to discover your sole purpose, to invest in yourself, to create a vision. That's actually hard work. But the better you get at it, the more you focus on it, the easier your life becomes, because you're now setting yourself up for success. You're now setting yourself up to build a life that you love. So when people get stuck in easy hard, they're usually doing things they're incompetent at or competent at, and you'll know it because you want to procrastinate these things. They're going to drain your energy as well. Now, this is where the trap is, and especially in a room like this, is there's things you're excellent at. There's things that you can do that other students couldn't do. There's things that maybe in your community you're the best at it of anyone you know, but you're not inspired by doing it. You're not energized by doing it. You're just excellent. The line of demarcation is when you move up into the top realm here, of you find the things you're unique at. That sole purpose of combination. So like, you might have similar abilities, but then you add values and all of a sudden it's different. You add passion, all of a sudden it's even more unique. You add vision, it becomes even more unique. Like, where are you unique at? Like, I'm unique at writing, at speaking, at creating content, at building relationships, and establishing a vision for my firm. There's 5 activities. If I get outside of those 5 activities, I've moved out of the unique zone and either to the excellent zone, which I'm excellent at sales, but I'm not unique at it. I'm excellent at coaching, but I'm not unique at it. I'm competent at management, and I'm incompetent at technology and systems. So if I move below the line, if I do things below the line, I'm going to be dragged down, and the world's not going to get the most value. It's going to harm my wealth, it's going to harm my daily enjoyment, and it's going to crowd out quality of life. So where you're unique is where you're going to build the best mental capital. So don't go out there and just become well-rounded at everything. Just maybe become adequate at a few things, but then become extraordinary at 5 or less things. If you get extraordinary at 5 or less things, you will be an absolute leader. You can create a compelling vision. And I would really recommend you find out in those areas where you can be creative, where we all can be creative in different ways. What is your way of creation that you're unique? Discover that, right? All right, we take our mental capital, first part of the value equation, and we take the second part, which is relationship capital. People, networks, organizations, mentors, friends, family. It goes back to me saying people are the only real assets in the world. So if our mental capital, if we take our mental capital and we multiply it by relationship capital, that's going to determine how much financial capital we have in the world. So if you want more money, You don't have to have money to make money. That is have you ever heard that it takes money to make money? You know who tells you that? People that have been sold to give their money to others that it didn't take their money to make money. Like if I told you it takes money to make money and then want you to invest with me, it's not going to take my money. I'm selling you on it taking your money. It doesn't take money to make money. It takes resourcefulness. It takes value creation. It takes service. It takes solving problems. Sure, you can have money that makes money, but the reality is it takes mental and relationship capital to make money. Financial capital is like a receipt. Money is like a receipt of stored value. When I go to the store, I don't go to the store to get receipts. I go there to get the goods. Bought myself a few drinks for the drive down that had a little caffeine just in case, because I'm not used to driving. I get pampered and I just fly everywhere, but it's like, I'm going to drive down here. And so I didn't go there to get the receipt. I got there to get the drinks, right? The receipt is just evidence of what was purchased. So when you have a receipt of money, it's evidence that you've delivered value in some way. Now, those rules don't exactly apply all the time within families, right? I'm talking about beyond families, when you're really impacting the world. And so the bridge between mental and relationship capital is business. Business is what facilitates your knowledge to bring it to deliver value to other people. So when you have a unique insight, value, creation, and ability, and you bring it to people, that's how you make money. Now there's two ways to dive into making even more. One is the more people you can reach, right? That would be the first level of impact. So the more people you can reach, that's why you see a lot of software companies, they make a lot of money because they can reach a lot of people through leverage and scale without having to be physical products. The second piece is the people you are reaching, how do you deliver even more value or deeper impact for those people? So first, how do you reach as many people as you can possibly facilitate and serve? And then second, how do you deliver as much value to them as possible? This is what I call the value equation. So if you want more money, it's either about spending time with the right relationships or investing in yourself and in your knowledge so you can deliver more value to those relationships. So let's break that down even further. In relationships, I've built three categories. I've just made these terms up. This is just how just a simple way of how I protect my energy, create a life I enjoy. And 2 years ago, we spent a couple months in Italy. And I don't know if anyone's been to Italy, but they're masterful at the art of doing nothing. It's glorious. If you love to nap, they've got that solved. If you're okay having a 5-hour dinner, that can happen every single night, right? They're never rushing you out. So what happened is I got really kind of laid back and chill, and then all of a sudden I come back to America and I noticed there's certain people that are always addicted to drama, always addicted to, trauma, always got their own agenda where they want to throw that up on me and then have me get engaged in that chaos. And when I came back, I was like, here's going to be my categories for relationship capital. The first category is going to be friends. Who are my friends? Friends are people that cheer me on. They inspire me. I can share my vision with them. They're excited about it. They might even challenge me. Friends could be mentors. They could be peers. They could be customers. They're just people that I want to do business with. I want to say yes to their invitations, and I want to invite them to things. Those are friends, okay? Then I created another category called friendlies. So in friendlies, I remember I went and spoke at this event once, and when they introduced me, they said that I owned all the skyscrapers in Salt Lake City. Now, I owned 45% of a 3-story building. I don't know if that's considered a skyscraper. I don't think so. But there's bigger buildings and more than that, and that's all I happened to own at that time. Then they said every other person that was teaching at this course was my client. Jack Canfield was there, Tony Robbins. I've never even talked to these guys, so they're definitely not clients. And so I was like, I don't understand why this guy's who he's talking about. So I got up there to speak, and I go, I don't know who got introduced. I either look forward to meeting them or becoming them one day. I didn't really know what to do. It was a weird situation. And so I went to that organizer of that event, and I got in an argument. I was like, this is ridiculous. You can't lie. And then I came back 3 months later, and guess what? He lied again. Now, and even better, the second lie was even better, because first off, he's from Georgia, and I'm from Utah. So I think he automatically assumed that I was Mormon. I think it's because I look a little like Jesus, just a little bit. And so that might have been the confusion. But He then said that we kneeled down, and Mormons don't really kneel down. I grew up Catholic where we did kneel down and prayed together, which never happened. So I'm like, what kind of crap now is he starting? And so I got all upset and went and met with him and started lecturing him. And then I just realized in the middle of the talk, I'm like, you know what, I chose to be here. Why don't I just opt out and never come back? And guess what? All the drama went away. So with friendlies, instead of trying to argue with insane people, instead of arguing with people that are addicted to drama, I just opt out. And when I see them, I only engage in small talk. I try to make it as pleasant and short as possible. And I've just become masterful at the art of declining in a positive way. When they say, hey, like, this is my favorite. I'm getting on a plane to San Diego, and I see my wife's ex-boyfriend. And it was one that she dated just before we started dating and then got married. And so I just went up to talk to him. And at the end of the conversation, he says, we should go to lunch sometime. And I just chuckled, and I put my hand on his shoulder. I was like, that's never going to happen, bud. But I appreciate the invitation, because he was an a-hole. Like, why am I going to go to lunch with him? But a lot of times we feel obligated to say yes when we really mean no. And so I once bought a book. I do this sometimes where I buy books because I like the title, but the title does enough for me. I bought this book called The Power of a Positive No. I never read it, but I just remembered I'm just going to learn how to positively say no to people. And so people on the friendly list, when they invite me to do something, I say, you know, I've got 3 passion projects right now, my head down on that. If that changes, I'll let you know. I never tell them to call me back. I say, I'll let them know. So I give them a polite no. It's a firm no. I didn't leave a crack open in the door. Or, you know, that's the key with friendlies, is you just learn to say no. And I remember I had another person that I had a cash flow crunch in 2008, and they told someone else, they're like, I'm really glad to hear that. They were really happy to hear that my family was potentially suffering. And when that got back to me, it's like, you know what? This is someone I've never really had a great interaction with, so I'm just going to be masterful at positive no's. And so what happened was, there was one more encounter that my wife had with her. My wife was in this reading group. They would read books together, but she was 8 months pregnant, and so she didn't go to this one because she wasn't feeling well. Well, they happened to read my first book called Killing Sacred Cows. I don't know if anyone's heard of the book. You guys are young, it's fine. It doesn't hurt my feelings too bad that you don't know about it. But they decided to read that book, and she wasn't there. And then her friend called her and said they hated the book, that this group hated my book. And my wife had called, like, hysterically crying. Now, I was concerned because she's 8 months pregnant, so I was like, I hope everything's okay with our son. But then I also remembered that I had this shirt that said Future Billionaire, and it just had like fuzzy letters, and her parents threw it away when she was like a month before that, and she was hysterically crying. So I thought, in perspective, maybe these hormones are pretty difficult things to manage when you're pregnant. I found out that they hated the book, and I was like, oh, thank God. She goes, what do you mean, thank God? I'm like, I don't like them. And if I wrote a book that they liked, I would really question my book. Because they had the things they would argue with is like, people know that when you get a job, you want to do the least possible and get paid. Like, that was one argument, because I said you should add the most value. I'm like, I would have to go back and rewrite this book. So anyway, this girl was on the friendly list. I just started saying no, never invited her to anything, and guess what? When her husband turned 40, my wife goes, hey, we didn't get invited to the 40th birthday. I'm like, it's working. Like, she saw it as a bad thing. I was like, great, they've stopped even trying. Now, when I say no to someone on the friends list, I always say, I hope you invite me next time. I'm just really committed right now. So please keep me in mind the next time you do dinner or the next time you're in town. And then my last category, this is kind of more for my price friends. Buddies. Like, I'm not sharing my vision with them, but I go hunting with them. You know, I just go have some fun. I'm not talking about the stuff like this that they would think is absolutely weird. We're just hanging out and telling jokes. I'm going to spend a small amount of time here because it's just kind of nice to relax and to keep connected to people I've known from the time I was 1. But friends are who I want to spend 80% of my time with, right? People that want to celebrate the wins, they want to advance it, they want to create accountability. So when you start doing this, you're going to massively increase your relationship capital because you only have so much time in the day, but you're spending it with the right people. Mental capital, the question there is, how do you learn best? Do you learn best by reading a book? I don't love reading because I have 2 kids. I write a lot. I just get distracted too easily. I like to call the authors and just ask questions. I like to interview. And by the way, authors are so easy to get in touch with. We're very fickle. If you just say something nice about the book, we're like your best friend, right? so I know the game. And so I can have an interview for a half hour and save 4 hours of reading. That's how I like to learn. I like to immerse myself in something like this, where I'm doing 10 days. I love doing those extended periods of time. I'm learning how to become, like as a writer, I feel like I need to do things writers do. So I'm learning how to make a really amazing espresso. So I flew to LA. I hired the best barista in Intelligentsia, which I think is the best coffee, to spend half a day with me. That's how I like to learn, just to immerse myself and ask a bunch of questions. So figure it out for you. Like, what's your best way to develop mental capital? Is it conversation? Is it reading? Is it listening to something? But the key is to consistently make those deposits into your life so that you increase mental capital. And then the key is you've got to serve others, solve problems, and deliver value to people. And when you do that, when it's not just friends and family, you get paid for it. And that's the value equation. Now, when we take your mental capital and relationship capital, if we combine that for the best of who you are, that's your sole purpose. Sole purpose will be the biggest catalyst of mental and relationship capital. Because when you're showing up the best of who you are, but the key is creating structure to invest in yourself. I had a radio show for like 5 years, and when I would interview really successful people, I'd say, tell me about what your day looks like. And what I consistently saw is almost all of them had a morning routine. Almost all of them had a morning routine. I like to call it a power hour or a producer power hour, but really investing in 3 key areas. The first one is exercise, just physically taking care of yourself, whether that's, actually a workout, whether it's just working on flexibility, whether it's, preparing and reading so that you know how to be healthier. Like, you're just spending some time to start the day on that. Then second is education. In what ways can you fill your head and your mental capital with the right information on a daily basis? Even if you're just spending minutes, it's more about consistency and habit than it is about extraordinary leaps, one day and then taking weeks off. Then the third E, so it's exercise, education, and I would say enlightenment, which is just what's your personal preference, whether that develops you spiritually, whether that's prayer, whether that's meditation, whether that's gratitude exercises, whether that's just having some quiet time, whether that's working on your vision. But before the busyness of the world gets into your life, before you wake up and the hustle and bustle starts, you have self-care and take the investment in yourself to begin the day. It doesn't require cash. It doesn't require an investment of anything other than time. But if you do that, what happens is Stephen Covey in the 1970s wrote a book. And in that book, and this was an old school textbook he wrote at the university, it said, if you take the first 30 minutes of the day for yourself, it will transform the other 23 and a half hours like you've actually got more time because you'll accomplish more by being more clear, focused, and powerful. So in that first conversation of scarcity versus abundance, scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth. It's the greatest destroyer of joy. It's a thief of anything extraordinary in this world when people buy into scarcity. Part of the reason you have a morning ritual is so that you put on your coat of armor of abundance, so you can be more abundant, so you can think with innovation and ingenuity and show up the most powerful version of yourself, so you're discovering your soul purpose. So you're not just in activity and busyness, but you're in the productivity of thinking about what you want in this world and really creating a clear vision, because that's the container in which your activities exist. Low vision equals, busy activities. Big vision equals productive activities. All right. I did start this with something, so I'll make sure to tie this back in. There's 2 sides to a scarcity coin. I already mentioned one, which is play to win. Play to win is hustle, focus, work, get there at all costs, but some of those costs might be family, might be health, might be great quality of life or experiences, because I know that the easy trap, because I was there in my 20s, was I'm just going to do this now because in the future it'll be better. But we start to become those habits that we create there, and it becomes an addiction. I remember the first day I was in that program, Strategic Coach, and Babs was the president, and she pulled me aside and she goes, what would help you make more money and just have a better life is you should take time off. I didn't take time off. I just worked every moment. If I was at an activity, like maybe I'd be at a concert or maybe I'd be at a movie, the whole time my mind was thinking about business. Because I was in my 20s, I just wanted to get to whatever societal success was. And then she's like, you should take some time off. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. I'll make more money by taking time off. She goes, yeah, because there's a notion called diminishing marginal productivity. Diminishing marginal productivity means you're so wrapped up in it and so busy that you become the bottleneck and you start to get exhausted. So even though you're there, you're not there at the best version of who you are. And I understood this later on because in 2006, I had 2 business partners that died in a plane crash. And for 4 months, I would get up and be at the office by 7, do the radio show at 9, get done with that 11, manage the office, kept all 42 employees, and after that 4 months, I'd gained 22 pounds. I would get home and my son would already be asleep by the time I got home. He was asleep when I would leave, and it was my very first break. From June 9th, my very first break was Thanksgiving that year. It was the first day I wasn't going to work, that I was actually taking a day off. And we were gonna go down and visit my family. And so we're leaving Salt Lake City, and I've got all the exterior view of what wealth is. We're driving a Bentley, which in price they thought was a really nice Chrysler 300. But we're driving the Bentley down there, and I'm talking to my wife, and we have some of our best conversations on these long drives. And when we get in Spanish Fork Canyon, I think it's awesome there, I have great memories, and she starts telling me things like, I'm an extraordinary businessman and an extraordinary radio show host. And then she looks back at my son and looks back at me, and she goes, but you're really just an ordinary husband and father. That was a moment and a line of demarcation. I could either be defensive, or I could accept what was being said and change my trajectory. I didn't believe you could have it all. I was in diminishing marginal productivity by working every waking moment. And then what happened was people weren't pulling their weight. They weren't doing their job because I was in busyness, wasn't thinking vision anymore because I was just trying to hold it together. And what I was doing was funding other people's laziness, not because they were lazy, but because they were unclear because there wasn't a compelling vision. I was sacrificing my health and my family all in the name of trying to live a legacy of someone else's rather than my own. So diminishing marginal productivity, when I go back to the story of her saying you should take some time off, my first day I took off, I called 2 guys I did a lot of business with. I said, hey, what can we do that would get me out of cell phone service? They're like, we're going snowmobiling. So we went snowmobiling on a Friday, and it was so hard not to be on my phone the whole time because I was so addicted to it that I thought there would be an emergency if I wasn't in touch with clients. And guess what? Everything was fine. And then all of a sudden I started taking a little bit more time off. So I took 89 days off that year, which was probably 82 days more than the year before, because I do think I took off Christmas and New Year's, but for the most part I was probably still in my mind working. And I made $170,000 more. Why? Because I treated myself as the greatest asset. Because I allowed others to step up and grow around me. I learned to delegate, and I wasn't just trying to do everything myself and being in busyness. I started to have time to focus on relaxation and rejuvenation and a little bit of recreation, so that actually helps you to create better mental capital, right? So the whole message here would be you have a sole purpose. The question is, will you discover it? Will you live it? Will you do the hard work and create a vision that's worthy of your life, that inspires you, that's beyond your reach, but you're going to allow other people to serve and help you get there, because then you can create something extraordinary for them to be part of. So the other side of scarcity is playing not to lose. I don't think there's a ton of people in this room that are going to be in the playing not to lose mentality, but when I played high school basketball, we were really good at playing not to lose. We were up at halftime 18 times and we won 3 games, because in the second half, we were really good at playing not to lose. Playing not to lose is those miserable misers that they have plenty of money, but you think they're broke. There's a book about it called The Millionaire Next Door, right? And the result of that book is if you want to live like Ebenezer Scrooge before the Epiphany, that's the book. Sure, that's playing not to lose. It's never enjoying money. It's never having experiences. It's all about saving, scrimping, sacrificing, and deferring. There is no impact in that world. There's just selfishness. Playing to win, you got to ask, is it really a game worth winning? At what cost? And what is a win for you? In playing to win, it's usually only business and monetary success alone. But in win then play is you determine your win up front and you build a journey that you want to be on. In win then play, you're working on a life you love and you have quality of life as one of your considerations. You don't look at it as when you get somewhere, then you'll be happy. You look at it more from an abundant standpoint of you're living the life engaged with your sole purpose so that it's something you look forward to almost every day. Doesn't mean that you won't have mistakes or temporary setbacks. Those are all part of the journey and part of the lessons. It just means you'll have the power to deal with those because you're living that life on purpose. All right, so we got a few minutes for questions. Yeah.
I have a question. So I'm actually reading that book right now, Millionaire Next Door. So could you expand a little bit more on the difference in mindset of having an aspect of scarcity as opposed to living within your soul purpose and trying to achieve? Because like personally, I'd love to have financial success, but I also want quality of life. How can those two things coexist? And what would you say to that?
Love the question, and you can put the book down. Okay? Because the problem with the book is it takes frugality and turns it into scarcity. So here's the framework. Living within your means is great counsel. Live within your means. But there's 3 ways to do it. Millionaire Next Door only tells you one way. So when you hear live within your means, what do you think about doing? Save, cut back, eliminate, do it yourself, right? Yes, you can become a miserable, broke millionaire doing that. But the problem with that is the budgetary mindset leads towards reductionist thinking, and we want to be in a production world. No one shrinks their way to wealth. And what happens is you start robbing the world of your greatest gifts because you're so busy thinking about what you can save versus what you can produce. So budgeting is good when you're a train wreck that spends more money than you earn. But the best thing you can do is automatically pay yourself first with a percentage of the money and then live off the rest. You don't have to budget and allocate from there. I'm collapsing a big amount of conversation in that. 2 other ways to live within your means. Efficiency. So in your life, there's going to be 4 main things that are a major force to erode your wealth. The first one is taxes. 93% of Americans in 2012, when we did a survey, were overpaying taxes. It's probably more like 97% based upon our newest survey, but it's still not a big enough number of people to determine that because there's new tax laws and all this. So we find that businesses overpay taxes $11,430 per $250,000 of revenue. That's a big amount of wealth that's just going out the door because of inefficiency. Loans, learning how to structure your loans. You can, I'll give you guys resources to give these guys on learn how to structure loans so that you pay the least amount of interest, but also the lowest payment so you have the most cash flow. There's 3 R's to that. Reallocate, so if you have underperforming assets, you pay off higher interest rate loans. That saves interest. You restructure. You structure loans into better loans. Like car loans and mortgages are better than credit cards and business loans, so you're charging a lower interest rate, right? And then the last thing is to renegotiate. Every loan interest you have is negotiable. So if you learn how to negotiate, you can get better interest rates. That's having the right credit score, the right cash flow reporting, the right collateral, and the right connections. So I'm giving you a lot here, I get. But then the next thing is investments. A lot of investments have hidden fees, unnecessary commissions, a lot of drag. And if you can eliminate those, you can have exponentially more wealth. Our study is if someone's doing a 6-figure income, it'll be a 7-figure cost in unnecessary fees and drag. So it's a big deal. The last piece is insurance. There's a lot of duplicate coverages and improper structure. Therefore, there's inefficiency there. And if you just only insure catastrophic things, not inconsequential things, you'll either get better coverage or you'll keep more of your money. So those are just 4 areas. I'll call them the 4 I's: IRS, interest, investments, and insurance. Okay? The third way to live within your means, and this is what I want everyone to really remember from this last question, is to expand your means. You expand your means by serving others, solving problems, and delivering value. The more value you create, the more money you make. So it's all about this expansive mindset of vision and value rather than reduction and elimination. You want to be mindful with your cash management. I don't want you to be sloppy with all your cash, but I don't want you to be, like when I first got married, The Millionaire Next Door was my book. I love that thing. So we were making 6 figures and living in this crappy little apartment. I found out there was a ghetto in Utah. I didn't even know it, but that's what kind of budget I gave my wife, right? And so I was always arguing with utility companies. I was always angry about what we were spending, and she was a teacher, and I'm like, you don't need new clothes. I mean, going from college to teaching 3rd grade, her mom as a teacher was buying her new clothes, even though I made more than her, because scarcity was everything I thought about. It permeated every aspect of my life. And fortunately, I had this conversation with this woman, Nancy, who I just saw 19 years later when I was speaking in Orlando in December, and she didn't fully remember the conversation, but she said, I wonder what it's like living in the financial prison you built for your wife. And I recognized how deep I was entrenched in scarcity. And when she helped me shift from abundance, we went from this crappy apartment to a dream home. And then we had an exponential increase, like 400 grand that year in income because of the way I was thinking. I wasn't thinking about elimination, I was thinking about creation. And remember, I didn't say eliminating is the way to own the future, creation is. So look, I'll make sure you guys have my books like Killing Sacred Cows, What Would the Rockefellers Do, because that'll help you get a really good structure in your finances, and we'll just gift those to GHA. And then when you read those, I think it'll really help you out. Killing Sacred Cows will help you identify the destructive mindsets within the millionaire next door and things like that. It's kind of like a success. It's permission to succeed. It doesn't tell you how to put the pieces together. It tells you how to avoid the landmines and how to be productive. What the Rockefellers do creates a very specific thing that you can do, which I started doing when I was 19 at $50 a month. So just getting in the right habits, right? So those two things will be really helpful. All right. I think we're finished with time. Okay, another question? Yeah.
My question isn't leading an organization.
Yeah.
Talk about vision. That's something you don't usually know the way to achieve it. I think my fear is if I have set a vision that isn't going to be achieved, the downfall, the depression, the upset, those that the organization feel that the vision was not achieved.
Okay.
How to be able to inspire them with something they don't know they can achieve.
All right, let's break that down. Okay, let's break that down in a few aspects here. I like to use management by objectives, which is having 3 to 5 objectives per quarter for everyone in our organization. 3 to 5 very specific outcomes that they know whether they achieve it or not. Then those 3 to 5 lead to 3 to 5 for the year. But the organization has 5 for the year, so their 3 to 5 become part of supporting that. See, people overestimate what they're going to do in a year, but they underestimate what they're going to do in 20. And so this whole fear of like, what if we don't achieve it? You've got to give some benchmarks along the way. You've got to give smaller successes and increased capabilities, and then you've got to invest into your team so that they feel connected to that, right? So we have retreats. And those retreats are, I do once a month where it's a State of the Union where I'm talking about our vision and where we're at with that. Then we have our retreats where I'll bring in other speakers for like a day and work on a lot of the mindset and get kind of outside perspective. And then we'll have an annual retreat where it's just our firm that comes together. And so if you have an open dialogue, then you can find out where they feel uncertain or they feel it's impossible or they're not sure where their place is in it. But like I just tell them the million is like by the time we hit the grave, right? Like it doesn't have to be done today. Like it's just, could we get there? And we'll just do what it takes. And we're not going to get caught up in that needs to be the next 5 years or 10 years. By having quarterly objectives and annual objectives and a 3-year revenue plan, we have something that we are more likely to achieve and hit that's very concrete and specific, but it's leading that way. And the way it kind of works is a vision is going to be kind of like a little bit slower growing at first, but then you can build more momentum and it becomes more and more exponential. Like, for example, what I know is when we hit 300,000 people that we're impacting, it spreads a lot faster. That's critical mass, because now the amount of word of mouth, the amount of other people that can bring it along, and the amount of infrastructure we can build for that. So the first 100,000 is going to be the hardest, and we're now at 120 that are on the path, right, to economic independence. So really, the leadership is to make sure that it's enough logical pieces to it, but here's how I separate it. I'm the leader, which means my responsibility is what are we doing and why are we doing it? I have a manager, their responsibility is how are we going to accomplish that and when is it going to be accomplished? So I keep them in the sandbox of quarterly objectives, annual objectives, and 3-year revenue plans. And when we're not hitting those, then we can adjust and say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what capabilities we need to add. Because look, there's quarterly objectives that we don't hit sometimes. But that makes it meaty enough and immediate enough that they feel like there's something that can be accomplished versus something so far out there that they have no clue how to get there. And I didn't come up with management by objectives. T. Boone Pickens was probably one of the main pioneers in that. He owns like more land in Texas than the size of the state of Rhode Island, and multi-billionaire. Everyone has their management by objectives in their pocket that works in any of his firms, and they can pull that out and just say, here's my objectives. I think when you go past 5, you're asking people to do too much and you're not considering bandwidth. Less than 3, you're not really challenging people, so it's somewhere in that sweet spot.
Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.